Yes. So what I do in Nigeria, can you hear me? What I do in Nigeria is to promote that aspect of the gospel that talks about integrity, honesty, selflessness, sobriety, and contentment. I decided to start doing this because what we hear from preachers in Nigeria is about wealth and prosperity, nothing more. So I have chosen to promote this aspect of the gospel that talks about selflessness, integrity, honesty, contentment, and sobriety. So I am not trying to teach, but to promote what church already know, the biblical truth that church already know. They know this truth. So I have decided to put, and they refuse to talk about it. I have decided to start promoting the truth, which they already know. And in the process, steer them, I mean the Christians, churches, to stand up and help control corruption in Nigeria. So my challenge now is about how to reach a wide audience. It's a difficult task because I know I'm going to have oppositions. People will withstand what I'm doing, though I started doing it. I started doing this since 2018. I've been printing materials, giving out free materials, but I have spent so much on printing, and I have decided to go digital. So I am looking for a way to get the media's attention. If I'm able to make my campaign popular in Nigeria, the media can take it off from there. I know how things work in Nigeria. The media like to talk about church. So if I'm able to make the campaign popular, the media will take it off from there. In Nigeria, many Christians do not want to fight corruption. Everyone wants to make money. Everyone wants to make money. So if you talk about getting church involved to fight corruption in Nigeria, you have serious opposition and resistance. So presently, I think of digital approach, digital campaign, but I don't know how to go about it. I will appreciate suggestions. I actually need collective wisdom. I am looking for advice on this matter. And thank you.
I'm wondering, Peter, what kind of response you've had since 2018 in your church, in your networks, to your shift in emphasis on these truths that you mentioned.
I can't hear you very well. Please come again so I can.
Yeah, I'll repeat it. I was wondering what kind of response you've had in your church to your shift, your focus on integrity, honesty, etc., and how has that gone with your congregation? What have been some of the challenges? What have been some of the things that have responses?
Yeah, I have been having serious challenges. It's a small church, the congregation of about 40 adults. And what the believers I have around me want is a miracle, some prosperity, because that's the talk of the town. That is what they hear everywhere. So when I talk about integrity and contentment, when I talk about selflessness, they give deaf ear. I only have just a few number of people who agree with what I am doing and what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
My movement, Voice of God movement, I have 3 pastors from different churches that I am working with. So we are 4 pastors that are actually doing this right now. Okay.
Thank you. That's encouraging to hear you have others joining with you.
Okay.
Hi, Peter.
Yes, sir.
This is Roberto. How are you doing? Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you, sir.
Just a few questions to understand a bit more the context. I'm wondering to what extent you are sort of aware of other initiatives in Nigeria, whether church-based or not, related to this issue, because I think it would be quite critical to know what's happening on the ground, if there are other groups, not necessarily church groups, but other social actors, you know, social entrepreneurs, NGOs, that are in this same space and in this same fight. To what extent have you been able to connect with others? So, you know, you have a better sense of what's, you know, happening in this space. I mean, Nigeria, as you know, if there is one country that occupies attention on anti-corruption articles, studies, is Nigeria. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, it's almost like a market analysis for me, you know, how much, you know, awareness do you have about other actors, what's happening on the ground, other efforts that may be similar, other leaders that may be sharing your same, you know, sentiment. And I'm not speaking just about, you know, your church or denomination, you know, sort of more broadly.
Okay, thank you, sir, for this question. In Nigeria, we have a civil society organization that don't fight corruption. The only organization that fights corruption in Nigeria is the EFCC, Economic and Financial Crime Commission. But that one is a government. Is an arm of government that fight. You know, government created that. You see, we have other civil organizations in Nigeria, but no one fights corruption. You know, they only talk about injustice. They monitor government revenues and expenditures, and you know, get government to give accounts of what they do with the resources, and they do other campaigns like you know, campaigning against child abuse, human trafficking, and other campaigns. So I have not actually come across. I have searched everywhere. I have not found organization that fights corruption in Nigeria. I mean CSOs that fight corruption in Nigeria. So I have not actually come across people that are of same mindset, people to work with. We don't have such in Nigeria. I have tried to get in touch to so many, but when they discover that I am getting church involved, that I am talking about corruption in church and in society, they discard. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. So, that's it.
For example, Peter, have you been in contact with Transparency International in Nigeria?
I have contacted Transparency International in Nigeria. I am still waiting for the response. I have not heard I've not yet heard from them.
Okay.
I think I did that about a month ago. Yes, I've not gotten any response. I don't know why church is afraid to talk about corruption. I don't know why the Christians we have in Nigeria is afraid to talk about corruption and do something. I don't know why churches in Nigeria have refused to talk about corruption and do something. Even the CSOs, civil society organizations, are quiet in that aspect. They do other things, they talk about other things, but when it comes to corruption, they're not saying anything. I'm in Nigeria, I know what is going on in this country. I listen to news, I watch television, and so on. So I have not actually seen organizations like CSO that try to take the bull by the horn and say, let us talk about corruption. Let's do something about corruption in Nigeria. They don't want, but they blame the government for everything. They want the government to fight corruption. Church want government to fight corruption. CSOs want government to fight corruption. They mount pressure on the government. The government should do everything. That is how it is in Nigeria. But the government is also corrupt. The government fights corruption, but the government is also corrupt.
Of course.
It's a terrible situation in Nigeria.
Yeah. It's not only Nigeria, of course, but many parts of the world. But Nigeria definitely is. It's pretty deep. Yeah.
So what I want to do present, because I know that if I keep going about it the way I'm going about it, there will be strong opposition. They are going to oppose me, seriously. The pastors we have in Nigeria will oppose me because they don't want that. I have been to Lagos Mainland, PFM Pentecostal Association. I distributed my materials. That was last year, March. I gave out some materials free. I tried to talk to the chairman, the province chairman, but he will not listen. Church contributes to fuel corruption in Nigeria. That's the truth. Church contributes to fuel corruption in Nigeria. And the Christians in Nigeria, youths, Christian youths, don't want to fight corruption. They don't want to talk about corruption. Everyone wants to make money. That is the situation in Nigeria. Everyone wants to make money. The gospel of wealth and prosperity has taken over everywhere. Youths are motivated to pursue wealth. That is how it is in Nigeria.
Peter, I was wondering, just thinking in terms of an entry point for you.
Okay.
Wondering in the context of COVID, there's a lot of, as you know, a lot of funding coming in for COVID-related effects, health, economic, social, a lot of money coming from, international organizations. And I'm wondering, I'm sure there must be some action, some movement within Nigeria society to make sure that those funds are well spent, monitored. I'm wondering if there are people there that are concerned about that, of course, concerned about, preventing corruption. And if there is an entry point where you can, have a voice in that process and maybe using social media. I'm just wondering if there are other groups that are, because this is happening, in many other societies. CSOs are coming together, they're demanding accountability, and just wondering if that's an opportunity there that may exist for you to sort of, you know, come into that picture and promote the integrity, you know, in that context, because I think everyone is pretty sensitive about that.
Yeah, in Nigeria, people claim to fight injustice. People claim to do all sorts of good works, but they choose people they work with. They choose people they work with. So I have come across many. I've come across so many actors, people who monitor government revenues and you know, do one thing or the other, and they choose who they work with. They choose who they work with. But concerning this very aspect that you have just mentioned now, I have not taken that step to reach out yet, but it's noted. I will see what I can do in that area.
Yeah, this just thinking that gives you an entry point, even when you're thinking about a social media campaign. That seems to be a very concrete opportunity to speak to, you know, using that as a platform for then possibly a much broader coalition and collective action. Yeah.
I have tried social media campaign, Facebook. Like I said earlier, Nigerian Christians do not want to fight corruption. They want to make money. I have tried using Facebook to do campaign, and what I get is like. I just like what you say, and that's all. Nothing more. They won't even share it. They don't share it. They just like. They will just like my write-up, and that ends it. So I am looking for digital medium. I don't know the medium, the right medium. I'm looking for the right medium that will fit my campaign. The medium that will make the campaign popular. You know, I want to reach a wide audience. I want to reach wide audience in Nigeria, because I believe that there are people of like mind out there, which I have not come across. You see,
Peter?
Sir?
Peter, I'm wondering if you know Bishop Zach Niringaye from Uganda.
From Uganda, I have heard about him.
So he's a member of the FPIN network. And so thinking about Roberto's suggestion about an entry point for a social media campaign about corruption. So as Roberto says, a really good entry point now is funds dedicated for the COVID response. But before that, the entry point that Bishop Zach chose in Uganda was theft of government funds for education. And one result of that theft was that school lunches that should be funded for primary school children were not available, and everybody in the country would be aware of that, and it would have a negative impact on the children's learning. And that was the one issue that Bishop Zach picked to focus a broad campaign about corruption. and he tailored it into a thing called the Black Monday movement. And people who joined that campaign would wear black every Monday as an expression of concern against government corruption. And I know Bishop Zach is quite a charismatic, fiery speaker. He's attracted quite a bit of national media attention in Uganda. So if you Google him, you'll get a YouTube clip of him being arrested by the police and jailed for a period. So he has some experience, and we're connected with him through FPIN. He has some experience of focusing a campaign and then generating some media coverage. I should also say he would empathize with your experience of frustration with other church leaders, even opposition from other church leaders, but I think that's inevitable.
Okay.
Hi, this is, hello. Kelly here. Would you mind if I make a few thoughts or share a few thoughts also?
Okay, sir.
And the first we all might find helpful is a summary of a number of national case studies that involved people power, civil resistance uniting. And there are two from Africa, one in Egypt, one in Uganda. And it's in a book which is available for free online called Curtailing Corruption. And it's about the power of people movements. But one thing that is interesting is the 10-page summary towards the end about some of the principles that the various countries had in common. And that is probably a very simple, good way to start for all of us. And then if we're interested, you could read more of the book. I'll send the link, but it would be the summary. But in almost all cases, there was a united, felt sense that led to civil resistance, including risks. Another takeaway is not everyone confronted corruption directly by the name corruption. That pushed buttons for people like there's something wrong with me, my character, my morality. And everyone, of course, wants to feel like they're moral, they're people of high virtue, etc. So not to detract from the ethical and moral issues, but to approach things perhaps, well, as Martin was saying with the bishop in Uganda, your children are being ripped off, your children are being exploited, and talking about something that's very close to home and personal that stirs up their sense of injustice without challenge them, at least initially, their own personal character and morality is one possible approach. So talking about exploitation, injustice, education implications because resources aren't, there's various ways to do it, and it's not necessarily easy, and I don't necessarily have a lot of experience in that, but I'm just trying to summarize some of the lessons from this particular book based on the massive church and culture related challenges that you've described, Peter, which is so embedded. But the final thing I'll say in summary is just maybe to repeat myself, is that, and I think what others have said, something about connecting with colleagues within the church, outside of the church, and finding common ground and a common strategy through social media and communication and so forth, the messaging that you want to use to make people want to be involved rather than feel threatened that this is going to interfere with their lifestyle or their sense of morality. Okay, I'll leave it there, but I'll send that link.
Okay, I will appreciate that. Thank you.
I wondered if Kayla from ISAJ, with all the experience they have, what would you suggest, Kayla?
Well, good morning. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Yes, well, what I was thinking, I'm sorry that I missed the first part, but I was thinking that using social networks is a huge tool right now. I mean, when especially if you don't have much funding, at least for us at ISJ in our country, that's like one of the main tools where how you can reach people and spread a message on the first place. That's considering if you don't have funding right now. And what we've seen now is that it is really important for well, we here we have like a tension among Christians that many Christians don't want to get involved in these kind of speeches or talking about corruption or other things. So if you're going to be addressing your campaign to Christians, at least in our country, I'm wondering if it is the same there, it is good to continue talking about integrity and living out the values of the kingdom and different values. So for me, that's like one of the major changes that we want to achieve with these kind of campaigns, especially to Christians. But also, it is important to point out the links, what Martin was saying, the links to the effects that that corruption has in our lives, in our direct lives. So I believe that's probably one of the main challenges to develop key messages that you could share in order to change the way people think about not getting involved in this kind of topics or in this kind of work. Probably for me, that's probably one of the things I will aim here. How do I convince them of living in a different way, and also to say that to say aloud that it's not right and it is not good what the authorities are doing. So that's what it's I'm thinking while I'm hearing. So I hope it is helpful.
I wanted to say something, Peter, that I've learned a bit about the campaign around public health and messaging and what's been working globally through a discussion that I was privy to. And one of the things that really stood out to me was, and it relates to what you're doing already, is positive messaging. So what we've already been saying, I think all of us here, just focusing on corruption or the very negative, while we must address that, it seemed that for COVID, for people to be motivated and to understand what they need to do in terms of protecting themselves, one was clear, honest messaging, but also positive messaging. And in Pakistan, for example, they took one organization actually has been making, and this is maybe something down the line, because they see this as really a long-term health issues and mental health. They're focused on mental health long-term, but using COVID as an opening point to really address mental health issues. So that's an opportunity, an opening for their campaigns. But they did simple animations and people could really grasp seeing people like them in these animations. And I think it also appealed to the youth But they were also saying, you know, a large percentage of the population there does not connect to social media. So I'm not sure where that falls, how that falls in Nigeria. But there was also, let's have a two-pronged approach. But for them anyway, they also felt they had to do non-digital types of communication to include everyone. And this is granted, it's for mental health. So many of the vulnerable groups were those of the marginalized populations. And where does that connect? All of us know that corruption kills the vulnerable the most and the poor. So they have a vested interest as actors to understand what needs to shift too. So I'm just putting those ideas out there for discussion, for you can evaluate them, how they apply in your context. And also in many of these countries were very multicultural, so the messaging had to be tailored to the context. So there was some more general messaging, but also there was the awareness that we also need non-digital and something to go through out to communities and that is understandable to their context.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I'm thinking again, Peter, about other members of the FPIN network who are based in Africa. And I don't know if you've had any communications with them. So I mentioned Bishop Zach in Uganda. Then there's Elisama in South Sudan. Sarah in Kenya, she works for Tear Fund. And I think it would be worth at least an email with all of those African members, just to, obviously they weren't able to join this webinar today, but to ask them if they have any experience that they could offer. And I might target Bishop Zach myself in particular, because he has been quite high profile as a civil society campaigner. And if he was willing to make the time, I think he would be a valuable person to talk to.
Yeah, I would second that, Peter, and particularly Sarah from Tear Fund. I don't know if they're doing things in Nigeria, but you definitely want to touch base with Sarah Onduko. My sense is that Tear Fund is probably the member of FPIN with more grassroots experience, particularly in Africa. I know they've worked with churches in many different countries, and they have quite a lot of experience in terms of advocacy. So I think that would be, I think Martin has an excellent point there, and of course Bishop Zach. So I think that I would say that those are very concrete things where it would be a lot of value for you to learn from, their experience, which is probably more than what we have on the ground in Africa. Yeah. Okay,
I have written to Tear Fund in Nigeria. I have not gotten any response yet. I am still expecting.
I promise you that I will write to Sarah this meeting. I will copy you, and I'm going to ask Sarah to get in contact with you. I think she's as I understand, I think she's the regional boss for Africa, Tear Fund.
Okay.
I'll do something similar with Bishop Zach.
There we go.
So yeah, I think those two folks are actually already know about Peter. So Sarah responded to the email about the webinar saying she wishes she could have been here and was hoping to get the recording. So Roberto, in that connection email with Peter and Sarah, she's aware of this discussion, and so I think she'll be expecting a follow-up. She was hoping to get a recording of this discussion so that she can catch up. And then Martin, it would be great if you could reach out to Bishop Zach again. At the very beginning, actually, when I first connected with Peter, I had connected Peter and Bishop Zach via WhatsApp. And he, said, yeah, that's great, let's do it. But I think, another little push would be helpful to get them to put something in the calendar. So again, he's also, I tried to make that intro before. So you might be a little bit aware and remember Peter, but so there's a little bit of context there to build on, so that's great. Kayla, I'm wondering if you could also, in terms of concrete things, could you send some, I don't know what the best way for Peter to get a sense of those social media campaigns or positive messaging that you referenced. Same with you, Michelle, if you have any links or what is the Facebook page or the Instagram handles that these organizations were using, just so that he can see some very concrete examples of what those positive messages were, and kind of use that as a starting ground. I think Kayla, particularly, you talk about justice and transparency and monitoring, and I heard that when Peter's discussion about what organizations are already doing. They're talking about injustice, they're talking about monitoring of government spending. And so messages that are focused on injustice or on monitoring, I think would be particularly helpful for building that bridge with organizations who are doing work in Nigeria to kind of understand when we're talking about injustice, this is how that connects to corruption, and make that kind of mental jump.
Sure, I'll do that. I'll send some ideas of what we use.
Great, thank you so much. That'd be really helpful. And yeah, Michelle, that'd be great if you could share any of those. So yeah, Peter, you can do a little bit more digging, seeing some examples of others doing that work.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you.
So I think that feels like a good conclusion to where to the discussion. Peter, I don't know if you have any further thoughts or questions or to kind of conclude the session that you want to get feedback from these wise folks on the call, or if you feel like that's enough for your brain to handle and your brain might explode with too many more ideas.
Yeah, I would say that I'm okay for now. I have had so much, and I will go back and do my homework. Yes, I will go back and do my homework. But the fact still remains that it's very difficult to expect. So I've been trying my best to
You've done a lot already.
Yes.
And I hope that you can persevere, and with some of these contacts, it sounds like find others who, as Roberto said, are in the same space and could really partner with you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate.
I like the name of your movement, Peter, which I think you said is Voice of God.
Voice of God movement.
Because I think the things that you identify about selflessness, integrity, contentment, those things are truly the voice of God, when so much of what is being spoken in so many churches in your context and others is not truly the voice of God.
Thank you, sir.